Hey everyone, welcome back to the Imperial Minis channel. This is Randall, and today we're going to discuss the Brotherhood Archers unit from the upcoming Brotherhood Without Banners faction for A Song of Ice and Fire. These guys are the Brotherhood's in-faction ranged unit, and they cost 6 points. As always, we'll begin by looking at the unit card. With 6 movement speed, these guys are among the fastest long-range archers in the game, matched only, I think, by the upcoming Skyreach Bowmen. For a faction that's reputedly a high mobility faction, this 6 movement speed will allow the archers to make the most out of abilities and effects that could grant them free, full maneuvers. 6 movement speed will also allow rough terrain not to be quite so punishing if the archers are trying to elude enemy pursuers. The archer's attack profile is a solid 3+ to hit with 7, 6, and 4 attack dice. This is a pretty standard non-volley archer attack profile, and it's a match for the R'hllor Lightbringers. Their melee profile is identical to nearly all long-range archers in the game. Before we look at the unit's order, we'll look at their ranged attack ability, Hidden Shot. This provides them the ability to ignore units and terrain when determining line of sight. This part of the ability is shared by volley archer units such as the Dreadfort Archers and the Stark Bowmen. Now let's look at a quick demonstration of the value, or lack of value, that this volley shooting ability provides. Here you'll see a standard long-range archer unit, the Stormcrow Archers, positioned behind a friendly unit. If they're lined up perfectly behind the Peasant Levy, they have no line of sight of the Bolton Blackguard. They are able, as all archers are, to take a 2-inch shift prior to shooting. This puts them in line of sight of the Blackguard. In this common situation, the Brotherhood Archer's volley shooting ability would provide no extra value. Now, what if the Stormcrow Archers were behind 2 friendly Peasant Levies that were engaged with 1 Bolton Blackguard unit? In this situation, a 2-inch shift could not put them in line of sight of the Blackguard, so the Stormcrow Archers would sit without a valid target. Now, if you're the Brotherhood player here, shame on you for positioning your archers poorly, but this is just a demonstration. If we swap in the Brotherhood Archers, they have no problem firing into the Blackguard over the Peasant Levies. Now, this might not be a very good idea, however, since you'll force your 2 peasant units to both take panic tests for firing into their melee. But this is an academic exercise and not a strategic one. Now, if the Blackguard were hiding behind a cover-granting terrain piece like a hedge or a palisade, the Stormcrow Archers would be in the same position as when the Blackguard were engaged with 1 Peasant Levy. Like last time, they could simply shift 2 inches to either side and that hedge becomes completely useless. So there's no added value here for the volley shooting ability of the Brotherhood Archers. Now let's say the Blackguard were hiding inside a forest, like so. In this situation, the Stormcrow Archers could not see the Blackguard, even if they took a 2-inch shift to either side. The Brotherhood Archers, however, could see and shoot at the Blackguard in this situation. So the Brotherhood Archers can shoot over terrain in units like the Bolton and Stark Archers. Unlike the Bolton and Stark Archers, however, the Brotherhood Archers are not designed to be volley archers, as their strength comes from flanking. The second part of their ability gives the archers precision and vicious when attacking an enemy in the flank or rear. These 2 attack keywords are actually a nice mix that can help defeat both high armored units and deal extra panic wounds to less elite, low morale units. So this unit could be a bane to both the Mountain that rides and free folk raiders alike. To make the most out of this unit, you'll really want to find a way to get into an enemy flank. Just shooting your 7 dice over terrain and units is fine, but it's wasting this unit's full potential. Now we'll move on to what is probably the most interesting part of this unit, its order Deceitful Reposition. This brand new order is like a selfish but better version of Tactical Reposition. When the Crownland Scouts first came out, there was a lot of hullabaloo about how great it will be to pair that 6-point cavalry unit with the 6-point Lightbringers, to allow the Lightbringers to either move up faster to fire at an enemy unit, or to use the Scouts to allow the Lightbringers to fire at enemy archers, and then scoot back 3 inches safely out of counterfire range. So this Deceitful Reposition ability really is the secret sauce of this unit. This unit's value in your army will be determined in large part by how well you're able to make use of this order. Yes, you can just plink away at enemy units and get some cheeky flank shots here and there, and have this unit earn its value. This order, however, can allow you to turn this unit into a really slippery eel that confounds your opponent's attempts to get their hands on them. Just like Tactical Reposition, this order can be used either offensively or defensively. Offensively, you can use this order to move your archers up closer to a enemy unit into firing range. This, combined with your 2-inch shift prior to shooting, will give your Brotherhood Archers a free 5 inches of total movement before loosing their arrows. So their effective threat range goes from 14 inches to 17 inches. Considering that in most games, 10 inches on each side of the table is going to be an empty deployment zone after round 1, these archers' threat range covers over half the remaining board space from one side to the other. Defensively, this order is fantastic for allowing the archers to scoot back out of range of counterfire from an enemy archer unit. The order can also be used when you expect a long bomb charge to come your way. You could pop the order at the start of the enemy turn, rendering a potential charge either impossible or highly unlikely. Since this is a 3-inch maneuver and not simply a 3-inch shift, you can also use this maneuver to pivot yourself into an unchargeable angle among friendly units, or pivot yourself perfectly over terrain to ensure your opponent has a more difficult time getting to you. There are certainly more movement tricks to be revealed in the Brotherhood faction once we see the full suite of NCUs, attachments, and tactics cards. We can be reasonably sure there will be tactics cards allowing for more movement shenanigans, which will just make these guys even more of a nuisance for your opponent to close the gap with and destroy. Now let's very briefly look at some other 6-point archer units that compete for the same slot in Brotherhood armies. Since the Brotherhood can take a Stark or Baratheon unit, these two long-range archer units could conceivably take the place of the Brotherhood archers, albeit at the cost of using up your one Stark or Baratheon unit slot. The Stark bowmen have similar base stats to the Brotherhood archers. The key difference here is that the Stark bowmen are slower and have no built-in movement abilities. The Lightbringers have identical attack stats to the Brotherhood archers, slower speed but better armor. The Lightbringers cannot conduct attacks without line of sight, however, but they do get vicious on all attacks and can chain panic tests together. In certain Brotherhood armies, especially once Lady Stoneheart comes out with her presumably panic-focused suite of abilities, the Lightbringers might actually be a go-to unit for the Brotherhood. As always in these preview discussions, the Brotherhood's attachment options and tactics cards will play heavily into this decision. Looking at neutral options, I don't really think the 6-point Stormcrow archers stack up well against the Brotherhood archers, at least not unless you're planning a Jokin Brotherhood list. The Golden Company crossbows, however, are a pretty interesting option for 7 points. Having Sentinel built in on them could be quite interesting in a faction that supposedly has lots of movement tricks. Depending on what kind of attachments are on offer to Brotherhood units, crossbowmen might actually see some play. Now let's look very quickly at a couple of 6-point archer units outside of the faction for comparison purposes. First, pardon the low-quality image of the Skyreach bowman. As of the production of this video, I couldn't find a clear image of the entire unit card. The Dreadfort archers have pretty solid damage potential, but that potential is really only unlocked at the risk of doing panic wounds to their own units. Also, they have no movement abilities, and they usually just want to hang out behind the front line. Skyreach bowmen are nearly identical to the Brotherhood archers in terms of base and attack stats, with one additional attack die on the last rank. The Skyreach bowmen present another appealing opportunity to speculate about a potential flanking ability, Outflank. As I discussed in my Men at Arms video, the Brotherhood appears to be the perfect home for an outflank attachment or ability through some other means. Also, if we look at the Brotherhood's faction rule card, we can see that they get 1 free point to contribute to an attachment. Returning to our dear friend, the Repentant Reaver Captain, let's look very quickly at what an outflanking Brotherhood Archer unit could achieve before we wrap up this video. Here we can see our Brotherhood Archers patiently waiting on the sidelines for their opportunity to outflank. At the top of round 3, they appear in the flank of the Bolton Blackguard. However, since these guys have the deceitful reposition order, they could potentially maneuver and 2-inch shift their way either into the rear of the Blackguard or in range to pepper the Dreadfort archers with some flank shots. If you have the potential to outflank these archers earlier, you may want to do that, since the first couple of rounds in the game are usually when some of the early range skirmishing occurs. Here we can see what a round 1 outflank might look like in this same battle. Here, though, you may notice that I've deployed my Sworn Knights on the side that the archers are outflanking into. This was done to protect them from a possible enemy advance, or to charge in and hold an enemy unit in place while the archers get some easy flank shots. Deploying these guys on the same flank as a slow unit like the Blackguard almost guarantees that you'll be able to fire off a couple of free shots before the Blackguard are ever in a position to threaten you. And when in danger, you can pop your deceitful reposition order and keep the enemy at a greater distance. The Brotherhood Archers look like a pretty solid long-range infantry unit. On paper, they definitely look like they're worth their points cost. As I said before, once we have full knowledge of the starter and hero box, we'll know for sure how either decent these guys are or ridiculously powerful they can be. A long-range archer unit with 6 speed and built-in movement shenanigans is a welcome sight for sure. Alright, well that does it for this latest Brotherhood Without Banners preview video. I hope you found this first look at the Brotherhood Archers helpful, and I hope you're as excited for this new faction as I am. With each subsequent trickle of information we receive on this faction, their power level appears to grow alongside my excitement. Even apart from their appeal as a fun faction to play, I'm really just jazzed from a hobby perspective to paint an army of what amounts to the closest thing we'll get to Bretonnia in this game. What do you think of this new archer unit? Would you take them in a Brotherhood army, or would you go for a Stark, Baratheon, or neutral option instead? I'd like to know how the rest of the community has received them so far. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll consider tossing it a like. If you want to stay plugged into future preview videos, battle reports, and other content on the channel, please consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Thanks for joining me today, and until next time, this is Randall, signing off.